are back for another State of Origin preview. This is for Game 2. Obviously, Game 2 is over in Perth, New South Wales. They won Game 1 up at Suncorp, as I sort of expected. They were kind of dominant, but in the exact same way, they weren't actually as dominant as they probably could have been. I feel like they probably could have played a lot better, and obviously they could have kicked a lot more goals as well. So realistically, New South Wales are probably going to go up another level, and it's now up to Queensland to not only go up another level to where Queensland played and match New South Wales' level in the first game. Queensland have to go up another level to match where New South Wales are going to be, because obviously New South Wales, they were better than Queensland. New South Wales are now going to be even better than they were. So Queensland really have to step it up a lot. And some of the changes that Queensland have made heading into this game, considering that they need to improve dramatically, I understand some of the risks Billy Slater has taken as a coach, but some of the decisions just don't make sense. And that's what we're going to focus on here in our preview for Game 2. We're going to focus on what are the changes that both teams have made, whether they're forced changes or whether they're changes they've decided to make. What are those changes and how are they going to affect both teams? But before we dive into all that, this game, as I said, it is in Perth. State of Origin Game 2 is in Perth, and Queensland have never won a State of Origin game in Perth. New South Wales are 2-0 in games played over in Western Australia in Perth, and the total score for those two games is 86-18. So not only do New South Wales always win when it's in Perth, they always absolutely smash Queensland in Perth. So if you're a Queenslander, you might want to ignore that. But let's get into what changes have been made and are they good or bad. Let's start with Queensland. First of all, the biggest change of the whole game is the fact that Daly Evans got dropped. The Queensland captain, he's played for Queensland since 2013. He's captained them for many years. He's captained them to multiple series wins. And he's now being dropped in favour of Tom Dearden, who came off the bench in Game 1. If you watched our Game 1 preview, you know that I was a bit iffy on Tom Dearden coming off the bench because he's a half. And I guess in a way they've rectified that because now he's starting, but dropping your captain is brave mid-series. Changes did have to be made because they weren't good enough in Game 1, but I don't think it was Daly Evans' fault that they were bad in Game 1, so I don't know if dropping him is the right answer. I feel like the forwards just needed to do more in Game 1, and the backline is probably not as strong as you'd like it to be. Obviously, Rob Toyer was in his debut game. He did all right, but he's only young. Halves was pretty underwhelming. And then Stephen Crichton just defended Hammer so well as well. And Hammer's one of the strike weapons in that Queensland side. So I think there's plenty of room for improvement for Queensland. And I don't know if dropping the captain is going to get that improvement out of them. That being said, Tom Dearden is a great half. He's probably more of a 5'8" than a halfback in my book, but he can easily play a halfback. I think based on the available options, it had to be Tom Dearden to go into halfback if Cherry Evans was going to be dropped. And Tom Dearden's a great player. I think he'll do great things in the halves of Queensland. It'll be interesting to see how Tom Dearden and Cameron Munster combine. As I said, I think Tom Dearden is more of a 5'8". He'll play 7 in this game. So the things that in his game that sort of suit being a 5'8", he won't do those as much in this game. So he will very much play into that 7 role. But it will be interesting to see how he combines with Cameron Munster, who is the 5'8" in this game. Who's going to take control of this team? I know after Game 1, Cameron Munster sort of talked about how he wants to take the game on a bit more and run a bit more, which sort of implies he's going to need a bit more of an organisational 7 next to him, where Tom Dearden's probably more of a running 7. So that balance will be interesting to see how they sort it out. But once again, Tom Dearden's a great player, and I don't doubt they will be able to sort that out and work out how to balance that halves pairing. Bo Firmo's another guy that's out. Now, I think he's been hard done by here. Once again, as I just said, the forwards weren't great in Game 1, and Bo Firmo wasn't great in Game 1. However, he wasn't really given a chance to be great. And I think we saw it on the weekend, Titans Manly, where Bo Firmo killed it. He destroyed Manly, and I just feel like he didn't warrant being dropped. And I feel like all these guys that Billy Slater has dropped, yeah, you can make a case for why they should be dropped. And yes, changes have to be made. But at the same time, pretty harsh. And I do wonder how that's going to impact the culture of this Queensland side when these guys that maybe they don't really deserve to be dropped. Yes, they weren't good enough to be like, oh, they have to be in this team, but probably weren't bad enough to be dropped. It is going to be interesting to see how the rest of the playing group react to that. In saying that, it does open a couple of good opportunities. We already talked about Tom Dearden, and in the forwards with Fermor being ruled out, it brings Kurt Capewell back into Origin. Now, this is a guy that I kind of thought was past Origin footy, but him, especially in the last month or so for the Warriors, he's been killing it. He's mainly been playing back row, but he has played a couple games at center as well, and he's done a really, really good job. So I think it's fair for him to come into this side. Once again, I probably would have just left Fermor there, and as well, just on Capewell coming in. Why now? Why wouldn't Capewell just be there game one? Like, Capewell hasn't done anything in between game one and game two to go, oh, maybe we should have picked him. Like, it's not like he only just started playing good footy over the last 1 or 2 games. He's been playing at the same level for a month or two. And same with Fermor. He didn't play bad to be like, oh, you have to drop him. So it's kind of weird that they didn't just pick Capewell for game one, but that's in the past. It is what it is. Capewell comes in. A guy I'm really excited that's been promoted from 18th man to the bench is Kurt Mann. Now, Kurt Mann will be in the 14. And as I said, if you listen to my game one preview, you would have heard how much I was against Tom Dearden being the 14 because I don't think he's a utility. He's a half. Kurt Mann is a utility. He's going to kill it in that 14 role. I am a Bulldogs fan. I am a little bit biased, but Kurt Mann has been so good for the Bulldogs this year. He's such an underrated player. We saw how important he is to this Bulldogs side last year when he got injured and their huge run, they were flying into the finals. They just fell off a cliff. They dropped their last 2 games. They dropped the semi-final because Kurt Mann's a really integral part of that team. He's a small, fast-footed 13. I wouldn't really call him a ball. I probably would call him a ball playing 13, to be fair. I would. But I feel like it's just his quick play of the balls and his quick ball movement. He's got a little bit of a step on him. We saw that in his last game for the Bulldogs where he split the Eels' defense in half, part of them like the Red Sea. I think Kurt Mann will be really, really valuable for Queensland in this game. I think when you think about how Queensland like to play footy, the guys they like to pick, I think Kurt Mann really fits into that mold. And I think Kurt Mann's going to do a really wonderful job for Queensland. It'll be interesting to see how many minutes he plays and where he actually comes on. Because I would have expected him to come on at lock. But Patrick Carrigan is being pushed back to the bench. Now, Patrick Carrigan would have been my starting lock, but he can also play prop. So maybe Patrick Carrigan will play prop and Kurt Mann will play lock. But there's probably a world where Kurt Mann maybe just plays the last 10 or 20 minutes or even plays hooker with Harry Grant. I think game one, Harry Grant was very, very average. And I feel like they probably do need to go to 2 hookers. And so that's where I wonder maybe Kurt Mann will be a second hooker. If that's what they're going to do, I probably wouldn't have picked Kurt Mann. I would have gone with a more out-and-out hooker. You probably then have to go Reed Marnie because Ben Hunt's injured. But if you're doing 2 hookers, just pick a hooker. I don't think it's rocket science. I really think with some of his selections, Billy Slater is trying to outthink the room. And I think it backfired in game one. And I expect it to backfire again in game 2, if I'm being completely honest. Outside of that, there's not really anything else huge to touch on. Like in terms of Queensland, I just think some of the changes are both understandable but confusing. Like, yes, they did have to make changes. They lost game 1 and they just weren't up to standard. And if you pick the exact same team and expect a different result, probably going to go a bit crazy. In saying that, again, in the post-game press conference, Billy Slater literally said that it wasn't a personnel issue, but then he's going to change the personnel. So was it a personnel issue or was it not a personnel issue? Billy Slater, I think he's a little bit rattled this Origin series. Let's talk about New South Wales. Now, Queensland, all the changes they've made are changes they've chosen to make. They weren't forced to make those changes. Billy Slater chose to do those changes. New South Wales, on the other hand, they've actually now had a couple of changes, and none of them were ones that they wanted to change. They were just forced into these changes. So the first one is Mitch Barnett. He's out injured. He did his ACL while playing for the Warriors. That's put Max King back into the starting lineup and Stefano Utoikamanu onto the bench. Now, I personally would have had Stefano Utoikamanu on the bench as my first choice next up forward. I personally would have gone Keon Kalolo-Matangi. I think his versatility in the forwards is really valuable. He's been killing it at prop for South Sydney. He's obviously a back rower, and he can also play lock. So I think that versatility off the bench would have been really good. I would have had Keon in game 1 over Hudson Young, but Stefano was obviously nearly going to play game 1 instead of Payne. So Laurie Daly clearly likes him. He was always the next in line forward. So I understand from a culture point of view, you don't want to have this guy that's basically all but going to play game 1 if Haas is out injured You can't have that, and then for game 2, it's like, oh, actually, you're now not our next up forward. I feel like you want that consistency from game 1, game 2, and game 3, that the next in-line forward is always the next in-line forward. Plus, Keon just got injured on the weekend, so none of it matters now. Another injury that forced New South Wales' hand is Mitch Moses, and this is a huge out. I know I said before, Daly Evans is the biggest change in this game, but Mitch Moses being out's huge. This is the New South Wales 5'8". This is a New South Wales halves combination that has never lost a game. You know, they're 1-0, but as a New South Wales fan, I've got to throw that bias in there. They've never lost a game, and after winning game 1, the last thing you want is that halves pairing disrupted. On the bright side, the guy coming in to replace him is Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary's partner in crime. This is a halves pairing that won 4 grand finals in a row. So it's not a bad second option to have Jerome Luai coming in and playing with Nathan Cleary. It's almost poetic because obviously Luai now plays for the Tigers. They just played each other a couple of weeks ago, Panthers and Tigers. So for Luai to come into Origin and reunite with Cleary, it really is poetic. And I'm actually really excited to see how these guys go. Obviously, they haven't played with each other all season, but when you've played that many years together, I do expect them to click really fast and to come together quite nicely. And I feel like that's why Laurie Daly turned to Luai, because when it comes to Origin, combinations is such a key thing. And so it makes sense to bring in a guy that already has those combinations. Now, Matt Burton was 18th man, and obviously Matt Burton's a 5'8". And so it is a little bit confusing why the 5'8" in camp wouldn't just slot into 5'8". But I think the fact that Cleary and Luai have these combinations and they've had all this success in the NRL together, and they have literally won Origins together as well. Plus, you got to remember, Luai killed it in Origin last year. If Luai was picked in the halves for game 1, I wouldn't have complained. In fact, I probably would have picked Luai and Cleary in the halves for game 1. Obviously, in hindsight, Cleary and Moses did really well together, but I think Cleary and Luai, especially Luai being an out-and-out 6, I think they're just such a good halves pairing, and I'm really excited to see them reunite. And even with Luai and To'o on that left edge as well, that's going to be really exciting to see them reunite. It's just really exciting. And I'm not even a Panthers fan, and I'm excited to see that. So if you are a Panthers fan, you'd just be over the moon to see these guys back together. But I think New South Wales losing their 5'8" and having to turn to a guy that's won 4 premierships in a row is a pretty good solution, especially when you look across the border and Queensland had to turn to Tom Dearden to play halfback, and he's not even a halfback. He's more of a 6. He's like, we've already been over Tom Dearden, so I'm not going to go back into that, but I'm just really excited to see Luai and Cleary pair up together and reunite. That'll be really, really exciting. Outside of that, there's not really anything else. I sort of already touched on the whole Burton 18th man thing. That's the only other real change for New South Wales. As I said, Keon got injured, and now Jacob Preston's flying over there as 20th man with Lindsay Smith as 19th man. Neither of them were in the squad for game 1, but that's just the extended squad, and it's very unlikely that either of them are going to play unless there's an injury. And outside of that, there's not really anything else to touch on. I'll give you my tip. I think New South Wales are going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it easily. As I said off the jump, they're 2-0 in Perth, and it's 86-18 the total score. So if I'm a betting man, I would be jumping on New South Wales to win, and I'd be jumping on New South Wales to win 13+. In terms of try scorers, I was very, very heavy on Latrell Mitchell in game 1, and he was very disappointing. But I'm going to back Latrell in to have a bounce back game. I think the fact that he played pretty average in game 1, I think he's going to want to respond to that. And I don't think Jeremiah Nano from Queensland is getting enough credit for the defensive work he did on Latrell Mitchell. And now he's back to the bench, and Kurt Cable is starting there. And as much reps as I just gave Kurt Cable earlier, I just don't rate him defensively. And I feel like maybe Latrell's going to expose that. So I'd be looking for Angus Crichton or Latrell Mitchell anytime try score. I think that's where the jam is. And then honestly, it's hard not to look at a guy like maybe Jerome Luai. I think in his return game, maybe even Jerome Luai, man of the match. I think he's, been flown into camp and flown into this game late after having his jersey taken off him. He was the guy that was the half last year, and then he lost his job. So I think he's going to want to make a statement. So I like Luai man of the match, to be honest. But there's some of the tips I'd be looking at. But as always, dabble responsibly, gamble responsibly, and as always, enjoy your Origin football.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.